My name? Well, I guess it's not that important, but I'll tell you anyway. My name's Nighttail. I'm a griffin. I'm about the average height for any other griffin. I look like any other griffin as well. Well, except for my hair and my tail. They're pure black. Let's forget about that. For now, I'm tired. I'm tired. I've been living in the woods for a few years now. I'm about 3, maybe 5 miles away from Griffington. I've always relished in isolation. It's kept me, well, me. I never cared much for anything. Well, maybe family, but there's the only exception. I have no friends, for as long as I can remember. I'm young. Griffins live to be about 150 years old. I'm 27. However, that's the least of my concerns. Right now my job, well, doesn't matter. What matters is I have my research. And I'm out here in the woods, miles away from civilization. I stare out the window most nights as the sun just goes down and the moon takes its stead into the sky. I stare out into the abyss of night, breathing ever so softly as I continue to scribble away into my notebook, my diaries, and journals. I've written into this one to vent all the thoughts in my head, for example. Even out of desperation, my mind attempts to latch and cling onto anything as a lifeline to preserve my dwindling sanity. I stare at what was written and take a deep breath in. I'd felt a rather violent stab of loneliness. It, whilst confiding to my complete solitude. Damn, maybe I'm just overthinking things. I'm just tired. I've been working too hard. I need to get out. See people, I stated. In fact, it had been 3 months since I'd seen, well, anybody really. I shook my head and jumped down from my bed and went across to my bed, over to my desk. And before anything else could spawn, I closed the diary and put it into the desk drawer. Turning around, I went back, jumped back into my bed, closed my tortured eyes, and fell into the abyss of sleep. My eyes shoot open. As I stare at my bare ceiling, I push myself up, ever so slowly, admiring my room, and something felt wrong. Something felt very, very wrong. I pushed myself up and out of bed. I felt well rested, as if I had slept for hours. But a quick turn to the left told me it was still nighttime, as the alluring abyss of darkness outside was plain to see. I shook my head, grabbed the lantern on my desk, in my beak, lit it, and continued over toward my door. Maybe I'm just being delusional. I walked over and pushed it open, the door, only to see a long stretched hallway. This confused me as I stepped out and then decided against it and turned back, only to be met with the same long, dark hallway. Turning both ways, I felt a sense of uneasiness. Rays. I began walking, thinking to myself, what the fuck is going on? Am I going crazy or something? I then said, stay calm. I can't waver in the face of this bullshit. Not now, anyway. I continued my pace. The long wooden hall stretched for what looked like miles, until I saw a door. I shook my head, knowing that this was probably a bad idea, but I didn't have any alternatives besides walking on forever. I walked over and pushed the door open to see I was in Canterlot. That surprised me. I should have been in the woods, but Canterlot. Except something was wrong. Something was very wrong. The buildings were stretched, enlarged, and some even floating into the sky. Large stairs were leading up from out of the ground, piercing into Celestia's heavens above. All around, a thick fog rolled over everything, not too much as to where I couldn't see, but also where I couldn't see too far. I looked around it and I heard a voice whisper, "Run. Please run. Don't turn around. The angel's coming." It whispered in my head. I would have shrugged it off if I didn't hear footsteps. The hoof steps. I turned slowly and saw a pony. I thought it was someone else and was going to say something until I saw them get closer. The pony, it was bald, void of any hair or fur, with its mouth cut into a Chelsea smile. Its cutie mark was cut out, with a bandage wrapped around its eyes. It also had barbed wire wrapped around its front hooves, with the skin peeled back where you could see bone. But the part that got me the most was its wings. They were covered in a tumor-like growth. Then it galloped straight toward me whilst laughing. I turned, spread my wings, and flew high into the sky. I flew with all my might, staring down at the thing as it galloped up the stairs, leading into the sky, no doubt continuing the hunt. I guess it couldn't fly with those tumors on its wings. I'm just happy. I'm not going to question it. Why question good luck? I flew until I spotted a building. I just knew that my sanity's finally failing me. I shook my head and flew through the building's window. The building wasn't like many others. It was made entirely out of brick, with vines and stems sprouting up the building like veins. The windows were void of any glass, nothing else at all, really. I flew in and saw inside, looking around the building. It was void of any furniture, save for some workbenches and random tools laying around. There was grass and random flowers sprouting from out of the ground as I moved forward with my lit lantern. As I looked around the hallway, it seemed to stretch even though it was still. I felt the darkness breathing all around. I was being watched. My mind was fragile, like a robin's egg. I don't feel safe. The shadows loom at me, toward me. I just have to breathe, and I'll be fine. Eventually, I made it out towards a small courtyard. As I looked around, I saw a tree that had massive bite marks going through the bark, with a few puddles that dotted across the yard. I looked over to a fountain and I saw a statue. I turned my head and gagged. It was a twitching mass of flesh shaped like a griffin. Its eyes were bulged out. It had multiple blood bags leading into him. As blood gushed out of his mouth, all his feathers were ripped from his body. However, on his chest was a key that was clinging tight to his body, wrapped tight in a vise of barbed wire. Nighttail moved forward and used his claws to cut the barbed wire. It seemed to do the trick, as it seemed to be very, very rusted, very old. It made the key fall, and he grabbed it into his claw. It had a string around it, going through. So he put it on like a necklace and looked up at the griffin, with the cloth wrapped around his mouth. He'd just noticed. He gently, ever so gently, lifted the talon and cut the cloth from around his mouth. Cutting the makeshift gag, he saw teeth, a few small bits of flesh, and a few maggots come out of his mouth. He coughed, looking at him, and said in a weak voice, "Thank you." The old griffin stared at him and was about to say something but stopped and said, "Run! It's coming." Nighttail turned his head and looked, seeing nothing. "What are you talking about?" "Look, it doesn't matter. I'm getting you out of here," Nighttail said. He didn't know why, but he felt compelled to save him. "Please, just kill me. It's too late for..." "Don't say that. I'm getting you out of here," Nighttail interrupted. After some time and effort, Nighttail patched the griffin and then hauled him onto his back. He'd done the best he could and began walking until a loud yell was heard from behind them. As Nighttail turned, all he saw was red. Then his eyes shot open. He awoken. He stayed still, shaking. Fuck. These dreams are getting worse and worse. I'm losing my grip. My mind cannot hope to withstand such an assault or another bad dream, Nighttail stated. He got up and threw the covers off of him, a cold sweat slowly moving its way down his body. He went over, opened his journal, and began writing. My dreams, they are around both the extent of my imagination and the limits of my sanity. I feel as if I am losing it. Paranoia claims my perception on the reality. The walls around feel as if they are closing in. I feel as if I've become irrational, as if I've been taken over the edge into madness. However, I feel as if a faint hope has blossomed. Nighttail finished. Nighttail walks out of his domain and begins the track downstairs. His house, lined with pictures of those held close and others long forgotten. The boards below him creak out in mild protest against him, his unknowing actions making his way. Making his way down, he stops into the kitchen and begins making some coffee. In an attempt to drown his tired mind, just as he takes one sip, he hears the door. Someone's knocking. "Open up, dweeb!" He smirks ever so slightly, knowing it's his friend, Gilda.